Pattern English.
Part 1. 7 Ways for Fluent English.
Hi there, I'm Emily. I'm passionate about languages and currently I'm diving into K-pop and learning Korean.
Hi everyone, I'm Minho. I'm from South Korea, and I've been learning English for a few years now.
Hey, Minho. I've always been amazed at how fluent you are in English. I've been really into K-pop lately, and it's made me want to learn Korean. Given that you're from Korea, and yet you speak English like a native.
Given that means to consider or take into account. For example,
given that it's raining, we will need to take our umbrellas.
Given that you're from Korea, and yet you speak English like a native. I've been wondering, how can I achieve that kind of fluency in Korean, just like you did with English?
Thanks for the compliment, Emily. There were several approaches I took to master English, and I think you could apply similar strategies to learning Korean. First and foremost, I tried to immerse myself in an English-speaking environment as much as possible.
Immerse. Immerse means to put yourself completely into something, especially an activity or environment. For example,
to improve her French, she decided to immerse herself in the culture by living in Paris for a year.
First and foremost, I tried to immerse myself in an English-speaking environment as much as possible.
So, you're suggesting that consistent exposure is key.
Absolutely. Whether it's movies, music, or TV shows, being continuously exposed to the language helps you get accustomed to the rhythm, intonation, and pronunciation. And the more you surround yourself with the language, the more it becomes a part of your mind.
Makes sense. I guess I should start watching more Korean dramas without subtitles then. Any other tips or methods you'd recommend?
All right, let me break it down for you. I think we have to go through the following 7 courses to develop language skills like native speakers. 1. Consistent exposure. As I already said, I tried to immerse myself in an English-speaking environment as much as possible. 2. Practice with native speakers. I joined language exchange programs where I could practice speaking with native speakers. 3. Shadowing technique. This is a method where you listen to a short audio clip and try to repeat exactly what you hear, mimicking the speaker's pronunciation and intonation. 4. Taking pronunciation classes. I also took some specialized pronunciation classes online. 5. Reading aloud. Every day I spent time reading English books or articles out loud. 6. Using technology. There are some great apps out there, like Elsa Speak or ChatGPT, that can help you improve your English skills. 7. Continuous learning. Lastly, even though I achieved a certain level of fluency, I never stopped learning. I always tried to expand my vocabulary, learn new idiomatic expressions, and fine-tune my pronunciation.
Wow, that's impressive. It sounds like a lot of hard work and dedication. But it definitely paid off. Your English is fantastic.
payoff. Payoff means to result in success or a benefit after a period of investment or effort. For example,
All the extra hours she spent studying really paid off when she received her exam results.
But it definitely paid off. Your English is fantastic.
Thank you, Emily. It was quite a journey. But I genuinely enjoyed the process. And it's always a pleasure to converse with native speakers like you and get to know different cultures.
Part 2. Consistent exposure.
Well, You're doing an amazing job, Minho. I'd really like to learn more about your learning methods. Let's start with the first point you mentioned, consistent exposure. How exactly did you immerse yourself in an English-speaking environment?
That's a good question. Well, firstly, I made a conscious decision to consume as much content in English as I could. For example, instead of watching Korean movies or TV shows, I would watch the English or American versions.
Ah, so you watched a lot of movies and shows in English. Did you use subtitles when you watched them?
In the beginning, I did use English subtitles to help me understand the content better. But, as I got more comfortable, I started watching without subtitles. It was challenging at first, but it forced me to really listen and understand the dialogue. Over time, this greatly improved my listening skills.
That makes sense. But movies and TV shows often have fast dialogues and various accents. Wasn't it hard to catch every word?
Oh, absolutely, especially with different regional accents and slangs. But that's where the beauty of repetition came in. I would watch my favorite movies or episodes multiple times. Each time, I'd pick up something new, be it a word, an expression, or a nuance in pronunciation.
Be it or means. It does not matter which one of the options you are talking about, each is possible. It's similar to saying whether it is or. For example,
Be it rain or shine, the event will go on as planned.
Each time, I'd pick up something new, be it a word, an expression, or a nuance in pronunciation.
Music must have been a different challenge, right? With all the slang and sometimes unclear pronunciation.
You're right, listening to English music was a different ballgame. But it was fun. I'd often look up the lyrics to understand the meaning and then try to sing along. This way, not only did I improve my listening skills, but I also got a feel for the rhythm and intonation of the language.
That's a smart approach. So, it's like you were constantly training your ears and mouth at the same time.
Exactly, the key was to keep it consistent and make English a part of my daily life. Whether I was watching, listening, or even thinking, I tried to do it in English as much as possible.
It's clear that you really put in a lot of effort into it. And the results are evident. Your strategy of consistent exposure seems to have worked wonders for you.
work wonders. Work wonders means to have a very positive effect on something. For example,
A good night's sleep can work wonders for your mood and energy levels.
Your strategy of consistent exposure seems to have worked wonders for you.
Thanks, Emily. It was all about dedication and persistence. But enjoying the process made it much easier.
Part 3. Practice with native speakers.
All right, let's move on to your next point. You mentioned practicing with native speakers. How did you find opportunities to do that?
Living in Korea, it wasn't always easy to find native English speakers to converse with. But thankfully, the internet bridged that gap for me. I joined several language exchange programs and websites where I could connect with native speakers who wanted to learn Korean.
Oh, like a mutual exchange? They teach you English, and you teach them Korean.
Exactly, it was a win-win. Websites like Tandem and HelloTalk were great platforms for this. I'd schedule regular calls with my language partners. Over time, not only did I get to practice my English, but I also made some good friends.
That sounds fantastic. But weren't you nervous initially, speaking with strangers, especially considering the language barrier?
Oh, definitely. I was super nervous at first. I worried about making mistakes or not being able to express myself properly. But most people were understanding and patient. They were there to learn, just like me.
And how often would you practice with them?
I tried to have at least 3 to 4 sessions a week. Each session would last about an hour or so. Half the time, we'd converse in English, and the other half in Korean.
How did you ensure that you were making the most of these sessions?
Good question. Before each session, I'd prepare a list of topics or questions. It helped steer the conversation, especially during those awkward silent moments. And whenever I stumbled upon a word or couldn't express something, I'd jot it down and review it later.
Jot it down. Jot it down means to quickly write something on a piece of paper or in a notebook so that you do not forget it. For example,
Whenever I have a new idea, I jot it down in my journal.
And whenever I stumbled upon a word or couldn't express something, I'd jot it down and review it later.
That sounds very organized. And I assume getting feedback from them was invaluable?
Absolutely. Immediate feedback on my pronunciation, choice of words, or grammar was crucial. They'd correct me on the spot, and I'd do the same for them when we practiced Korean. This real-time correction significantly sped up my learning process.
It's clear that you made excellent use of these platforms. Practicing with native speakers must have given you insights into not just the language but also the culture.
Precisely, it wasn't just about grammar and vocabulary. It was also about understanding the nuances, idioms, and cultural references.
references. References means things you mention or talk about that come from culture, like books, movies, or events. For example,
Her conversation was full of references to British literature, which added lots of meaning to her stories.
It was also about understanding the nuances, idioms, and cultural references. It made learning English so much richer and more enjoyable.
I can imagine. It's one thing to learn a language from books, and another to experience it with real people. Your proactive approach is truly great.
Thanks, Emily. It was a journey full of challenges. But every conversation brought me one step closer to fluency. And it was all worth it.
Part 4. Shadowing technique.
Got it. Let's move on to your third method. I'm curious about this shadowing technique you mentioned. Can you explain it in more detail?
Of course, shadowing is essentially a listening and speaking exercise. You listen to a short audio clip, and as you hear it, you try to repeat or shadow what the speaker is saying in real time, mimicking their pronunciation, tone, and intonation as closely as possible.
Oh, so you're basically echoing them as they speak. But doesn't that get confusing, trying to listen and speak simultaneously?
Simultaneously. Simultaneously means to happen at the same time. For example,
The two runners crossed the finish line simultaneously, making it difficult to determine the winner.
But doesn't that get confusing, trying to listen and speak simultaneously?
It can be at first, especially if the clip is fast-paced. But that's the challenge of it. Shadowing forces your brain to process the language quickly and helps improve your listening and speaking skills simultaneously. Initially, I'd miss out on a few words or mess up the intonation, but with practice, I got better.
mess up. Mess up means to make a mistake, handle something badly, or do something wrong. For example,
I was nervous during the presentation and messed up the order of my slides.
Initially, I'd miss out on a few words or mess up the intonation, but with practice, I got better.
Sounds intense. What kind of audio clips did you use for shadowing?
I primarily used podcasts and news segments. They usually have clear audio and are spoken in a neutral accent. Over time, as I got more comfortable, I started using movies or talk show clips to challenge myself with varied accents and speech rates.
Interesting. Were there specific topics you focused on, or was it more about the accent and pronunciation?
At first, it was more about the pronunciation and getting the rhythm right. But as I advanced, I started choosing topics that interested me or areas where I felt my vocabulary was lacking. This way, I was not only practicing my speaking and listening, but also learning new words and phrases.
How often did you practice this technique? And for how long each session?
I aimed for about 20 to 30 minutes every day. Sometimes I'd pick one long clip, and other times, I'd shuffle through multiple shorter ones. The key was to keep it diverse, so I was always challenging myself and not just memorizing patterns.
And did you notice a significant improvement in your listening and speaking skills through shadowing?
Definitely, it helped me catch fast dialogues in movies better and also improved my fluency and confidence in speaking. Shadowing trained my ears and mouth to work in tandem, making my reactions in conversations more instinctive and natural.
in tandem. In tandem means to work together or simultaneously in coordination. For example,
The cyclists were riding in tandem, perfectly synchronized with each other's movements.
Shadowing trained my ears and mouth to work in tandem, making my reactions in conversations more instinctive and natural.
That's a unique approach. I've never thought of language learning in that way, but it makes sense. Training yourself to process and reproduce the language in real time must have been quite effective.
It was, and while it was challenging, it was also a lot of fun. Every time I got a difficult segment, it felt like a mini accomplishment.
Well, it's clear that your dedication and innovative techniques have paid off. It's fascinating to learn about your journey and the methods you employed.
Thanks, Emily. It's all about finding what works best for you and sticking with it.
stick with. Stick with means to keep doing something and not stop. For example,
Even though learning to play the guitar was hard, I stuck with it, and now I can play many songs.
Thanks, Emily. It's all about finding what works best for you and sticking with it. Shadowing was just one of those techniques that worked wonders for me.
Part 5. Taking pronunciation classes.
So, moving on. You mentioned taking specialized pronunciation classes online. Tell me more about that. What motivated you to take these classes?
While I was making progress with my self-study methods, I realized there were certain sounds I consistently struggled with.
Struggle with. Struggle with means to experience difficulty in doing something. For example,
He struggled with math throughout high school, but he got extra help and eventually improved.
I realized there were certain sounds I consistently struggled with. These sounds don't exist in Korean, so it was hard to get them right just by mimicking.
Ah, I see. Are you talking about sounds like th, r, and l? I've heard that those can be tricky for Koreans.
Exactly. The th sound both voiced and voiceless, was especially challenging. And then there's the confusion between the R and L sounds, which often sound similar in Korean. I felt that to truly sound like a native speaker, I needed to nail these pronunciations.
Nail. Nail means to do something very successfully or perfectly, especially something that's difficult. For example,
She nailed the presentation. Everyone was impressed with how clear and confident she was.
I felt that to truly sound like a native speaker, I needed to nail these pronunciations.
That makes sense. So, how did these online classes work?
I signed up for a few courses that were specifically designed for Korean speakers learning English. The instructors were usually linguists or experienced ESL teachers. They'd break down the mechanics of each sound, explain how to position the tongue, lips, and even where to focus the breath.
Sounds thorough. Were these one-on-one classes or group sessions?
I took a mix of both. One-on-one sessions were great for personalized feedback. The instructor could focus solely on my pronunciation, point out my mistakes, and correct them immediately. Group sessions, on the other hand, were beneficial, as I could learn from others' mistakes and successes. Plus, it was motivating to see others struggle and improve as well.
I can imagine. And how often did you attend these classes?
I started with twice a week, each session lasting about an hour. As I improved, I reduced it to once a week, focusing more on practice and implementing what I learned.
implement. Implement means to put into action or to carry out a plan, method, or instruction. For example,
After the training, we started to implement the new procedures that were taught to us.
As I improved, I reduced it to once a week, focusing more on practice and implementing what I learned.
Did you practice these sounds outside of class as well?
Absolutely. During my daily routine, I'd often repeat tricky words or sentences, trying to get the pronunciation just right. Sometimes, I'd even record myself and compare it to native speakers to spot differences.
That's dedication. And I assume these classes made a noticeable difference.
They did. It was a game changer. Understanding the mechanics behind each sound and getting expert feedback helped me refine my pronunciation significantly. I felt more confident in conversations, knowing I was getting those tricky sounds right.
It's impressive how you identified your weak points and proactively sought out specialized training to overcome them. Your approach to mastering English pronunciation is truly inspiring.
Thanks, Emily. I believe that with the right resources and determination, anyone can achieve their language goals. It's all about pinpointing the areas of improvement and addressing them systematically.
pinpoint. Pinpoint means to identify or locate something very precisely. For example,
The detective was able to pinpoint the location of the suspect, using the clues left at the scene.
It's all about pinpointing the areas of improvement and addressing them systematically.
Part 6. Reading aloud every day.
Continuing on, you mentioned reading English books and articles out loud as part of your routine. Why did you choose this method, and how did it benefit you?
Reading aloud was something I stumbled upon while trying to improve my speaking fluency. When we read silently, we often skip or gloss over challenging words or phrases.
Gloss over. Gloss over means to ignore or not spend much time on something difficult or important. For example,
He glossed over the hard parts of the story and only talked about the easy stuff.
When we read silently, We often skip or gloss over challenging words or phrases. But reading out loud forces you to confront and pronounce each word, which is excellent practice.
That's a great point. What type of materials did you choose for this practice?
I started with children's books because they have simpler vocabulary and sentence structures. As I grew more confident, I transitioned to novels, news articles, and academic journals. This progression not only improved my pronunciation, but also expanded my vocabulary and understanding of complex sentence structures.
How did you ensure that you were getting the intonation and rhythm right when reading aloud?
Initially, I'd listen to audiobooks or native speakers reading the same passage, then try to mimic their style. This gave me a sense of the natural rhythm and intonation of English sentences. Over time, I began to develop my own rhythm, but those initial references were invaluable.
So it's like shadowing, but with written materials. Did you face any particular challenges with this method?
One challenge was making sure I didn't just mechanically read the words. It's easy to fall into a monotonous pattern when reading alone. To counter this, I sometimes imagined I was narrating the story to someone else or giving a presentation. This pushed me to be more expressive and mindful of my intonation.
That's an interesting way to keep yourself engaged. How much time did you dedicate to this practice daily?
I aimed for about 20 to 30 minutes daily. It was more about consistency than duration. Making it a daily habit ensured that I was continuously practicing and refining my pronunciation and rhythm.
It seems like a simple, yet effective technique. I can see how it helped you get comfortable with English sentence structures and the flow of speech.
Absolutely, and beyond pronunciation, reading diverse materials also enriched my knowledge on various topics, which in turn made conversations in English more engaging and meaningful.
It's clear that every technique you employed had multiple benefits. Your strategic approach to mastering English is genuinely remarkable.
Thank you, Emily. It's been a journey of discovery, finding what methods work best for me. Reading aloud was one of those simple, yet profoundly impactful techniques in my learning process.
Part 7. Using technology.
On the topic of methods, I've also heard that there are apps that help with pronunciation. Did you incorporate any technology into your learning process?
Oh, absolutely, technology was a big help. One app I found particularly useful was Elsa Speak. It's designed to analyze your pronunciation and provide feedback on areas to improve. It would highlight specific words or sounds I struggled with and offer exercises to help correct them.
That sounds like a game changer. Having real-time feedback must have been incredibly useful.
It's one thing to hear yourself and think you're getting it right, but having an objective analysis pinpointing your exact areas of weakness was invaluable. Plus, the app would adapt to my progress, so I was always challenged.
That sounds incredibly effective. By the way, did you find any YouTube channels helpful for your English studies?
Oh, yes. There's this channel called Pattern English that I've found really useful. It's great for understanding how native speakers construct sentences. I've been subscribing to it and following their lessons regularly. It's another resource that has really complemented my learning routine.
That's a smart approach. I hadn't considered using YouTube channels that way. Finding the right content must make a huge difference.
Absolutely, and since you're already interested in K-pop, similar channels for Korean learning could leverage that interest and really boost your learning. Why don't you give it a try? The way Pattern English has helped me, I'm sure you can find Korean channels that could do the same for you.
That's a great idea, Minho. I'll look for channels that specialize in teaching Korean. Any recommendations?
Definitely. There are a few popular ones that break down Korean grammar and vocabulary. I'll send you a list of the ones I know are good. They should give you a solid starting point.
Awesome, thanks. I'm all for using all the resources I can get. And I've also heard about language models like ChatGPT that have voice capabilities. Have you tried anything like that?
Oh yes, I've used ChatGPT for voice role-playing in English conversations. The app allows you to engage in spoken dialogue, and it's like talking to a fluent English speaker. It's fantastic for practicing real-time conversations and getting used to spontaneous interactions in English.
Wow, that's innovative. So, you would basically have a conversation with the app, and it would respond in real time.
Exactly. What's great about ChatGPT is that you can choose different topics or scenarios to discuss, so it keeps the conversations diverse and interesting. And because it's an AI, I never felt judged. I could make mistakes, ask it to repeat, or even switch topics without any pressure.
That sounds like an excellent way to get comfortable with conversational English. Combining targeted pronunciation apps like Elsa Speak with real-time conversation practice using ChatGPT must have given you a comprehensive learning experience.
It did. Using technology allowed me to tailor my learning to my specific needs and progress at my own pace.
Tailor. Tailor means to make or adjust something to suit a particular person or purpose. For example,
The teacher tailored the lessons to each student's ability.
It did. Using technology allowed me to tailor my learning to my specific needs and progress at my own pace. It's an exciting time to be a language learner with all these tools at our disposal.
Definitely. Your journey is proof of how combining traditional methods with modern technology can yield fantastic results.
Part 8. Continuous learning.
So, you've shared a lot of methods you used to get to this point. But I imagine maintaining and further refining your skills is also a challenge. How do you ensure you continue to improve?
That's a great point, Emily. Language learning is definitely a continuous journey. Even after I felt I had achieved a decent level of fluency, I never became self-satisfied. I always looked for ways to expand my vocabulary, learn new idiomatic expressions, and further refine my pronunciation.
So, it's like a never-ending process for you.
In a way, yes. But I see it more as a lifelong passion than a task. English, like any language, is constantly evolving. New words, slang, and expressions come up all the time. To truly stay fluent, one needs to keep up with these changes.
How do you go about continuously expanding your vocabulary?
I make it a point to read widely: books, articles, news, blogs. Whenever I encounter a word or phrase I'm unfamiliar with, I jot it down, look it up, and try to use it in my conversations. Over time, these new words and expressions become a natural part of my vocabulary.
What about idiomatic expressions? They can be quite tricky, given they often don't translate directly from one language to another.
You're right, idioms can be challenging. But they're also fascinating because they give insight into the culture and history of a language. I usually learn them from movies, TV shows, or native speakers. Whenever I hear a new one, I ask about its meaning and origin. It not only helps me remember the expression, but also deepens my understanding of English-speaking cultures.
And pronunciation? You already sound so much like a native speaker. How do you further fine-tune it?
Thank you for the compliment. For pronunciation, I continue to use some of the methods I mentioned earlier, like shadowing and reading aloud. Plus, I occasionally go back to apps like Elsa Speak, or even record myself to catch any subtle nuances I might be missing.
It sounds like your commitment to continuous learning is what truly sets you apart. Most people might become satisfied with their achievements after reaching a certain level of proficiency. But you're always striving for more.
That's the beauty of language learning. There's always something new to discover, and the journey itself is so rewarding. It's been an incredible adventure, and I'm excited to see where it takes me next.
Hearing about your journey makes me even more eager to dive into learning Korean.
Eager to. Eager to means to be very interested and excited about doing something. For example,
She was eager to start her new job and meet her colleagues.
Hearing about your journey makes me even more eager to dive into learning Korean. I want to experience that same rewarding feeling of discovery and progress. Do you think these methods you used for English could be applied to Korean as well?
Absolutely, Emily. The principles of language learning are universal. Consistent exposure, practicing with native speakers, and utilizing various techniques can be applied to any language, including Korean. The key is dedication and passion.
I'm genuinely inspired, Minho. I'll start by immersing myself in Korean media and looking for language exchange opportunities. Who knows, maybe in a couple of years, we'll be having a conversation in Korean.
I have no doubt about that, Emily. Just stay committed and enjoy the journey. And remember, I'm here to help and support you along the way.
화이팅!
Thanks, Minho. Fighting indeed. Let the adventure begin.
Pattern. English.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and hit the like button.
Thanks for watching this video.
pattern English.